Last night, many of you saw a film called Devil in a Blue Dress, and there was a rather substantial discussion about Mouse after the film. And the terrible Pigeon said to me, whispered to me, because he refuses to speak in public. The terrible Pigeon whispered to me that he's a metaphor. He says, he's a metaphor. Right? And I thought about the terrible Pigeon's insights, and I've been teaching film for several years, and every time you see the film, you see something new in the film. There were 4 violent black males in that film, Devil in a Blue Dress. I don't have time for those who didn't see the film this time, but maybe you've seen it before. 2 of them were mercenaries, the watermelon-headed brother who smoked the zapatas, and Joppy, the barman who had such pride in his marble top. The other 2 violent men were Frank Green, the brother of Daphne, and Mouse. And as Otis indicated last night, in the novel, there's a total construction for Frank Green. He is the brother or half-brother of a sister who has been sexually abused by her father. His violence is protective of her. All right? So it has a germination, it has an explication. Mouse is the only one for whom there is no explanation for his violence. So the terrible Pigeon is probably right, that even in Mosley's construction, Mouse was more metaphor, right, than character. Stretching that, Mouse, his violence, is married to, as part of the pillar of a complement to, a condition of possibility for the achievement, fulfillment, realization of the black petty bourgeois desire of easy rollings. Without Mouse, no house. All right? Without Mouse, no neighborhood. All right? And the genius of the black petty bourgeoisie is to be able to administer and manage that violence. And when Easy asked Odell at the end of the film, what do you do when you have a friend that does really bad things? Right? Can you still be a friend? And Odell says, all you got is your friends. All you got is your friends. Iraq is Mouse. All right? Iraq is America's Mouse. American radicalism's Mouse. Remember the first powerful confrontation with race in the 19th century that was positive was the Civil War. All right? That is, we know that one thing was happening in the 1850s and perhaps the 1840s, but certainly the 1850s. The abolitionists were winning the propaganda war. The abolitionists outproduced the pro-slavery faction in terms of pamphlets, even in terms of cultural materials like plays and novels, et cetera, et cetera. The most, produced and reproduced play of the 19th century was Uncle Tom's Cabin, isn't it? Right? So the abolitionists won that contest outright. The realization of the abolitionists' desire came with the admission of violence. All right? That is the war. That is 190,000, 200,000, primarily slaves serving in the Union Army and the Union Navy. Just think about that. Think about that. Between 1863 and 1865, nearly 200,000, mostly slaves, trained and fought and turned the Union defeat into victory, accounting for 19% of the casualties of the Union Army. All right? That was the abolitionist's mouse. All right. So we come to the 20th century, we come to the post-World War II period, we come to a moment when, in fact, like this moment, there was not a drift, but in fact, almost a tidal wave towards the right, all right, in the direction of this extraordinary repressive society. And the thing which stopped it didn't halt it, but the thing which slowed it down and began to reverse it was, in effect, this violent confrontation called the Civil Rights Movement. All right? That is, people who said to themselves, I don't want to do this anymore. Kill me. I'm not going to do that anymore. All right? And so folks took them literally and killed some of them. I said, if you don't want to do it, that's okay. Right? We'll find somebody else to do it. All right? So understand, my understanding of your question, Howard, is at this moment, how does it happen? It happens, as I was suggesting, with some sort of violent opposition. And at the moment, the violent opposition to America, right, is in large measure outside the United States. But we know that this is the kind of adventure which seems to be boundless. In the American military establishment, you're going to have a simple resolution. They can determine that they won the war and leave, no matter what the realities on the ground are. They can proceed to genocide and have a resolution, or they can fight for another 15 years. All right? They told Reagan, we will only go to war if we can win in 2 weeks. Because you can't guarantee American public support for any longer period than that. That's what they told him. All right? And we've seen the deterioration of this policy already. So I think we can't avoid that reality. There are going to be, we can't afford to continue to lie to ourselves, right? That we can move out of this process by process, right? The resources are arranged against us, right? Many of us involved in the anti-war movement, and it was 8 months before the American media reported on it. A year and a half before, the prominent American media said, we're sorry we paid no attention to you. That was wrong. You were news. All right? So that gives you some sense of kind of stuff. So we have to win the propaganda war. That's a given. And some of you were talking this afternoon about the ways in which that can be done. But I'm afraid that easy victory we thought was possible through a Democratic Party takeover of the state There's not enough in the Democratic Party, as far as I'm concerned, to warrant that kind of faith. All right? I hope that those of you who feel more optimistic are right. You know? I hope that you're right. But I've, seen a lot of bad things in my time. And I don't want to, I just don't want to close my eyes and say, they're not real. An alternative America is more real. I don't know about that.